Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode on the podcast. On this episode, I shared an incredible conversation with the lovely Simi Gosling. She is a holistic relationship counselor. So today's episode is focused around relationships, and this is a juicy one. Whether you're in a relationship or you're single, dating, not dating, there are so many points in here on how to find love, the complexity of relationships, understanding relationship patterns. This blew my mind. The impact of our past hurt in relationships and the perspectives that it's now given us, our attachment styles, our core wounds, and how we can heal them and what behaviors it kind of makes us do. Emotional availability, balancing expectations and needs in relationships, modern dating. So we talk a little bit about the apps and her experiences, my experiences, self-fulfillment in relationships, and how to end relationships respectfully, how to start and end and be super honest. I think there's so many good questions and value that's in this. And I'm really grateful that a lot of you gave me some questions as well, because I wanted to know from you what you wanted to get answered as well. And yeah, like I said, there's going to be so many points that you're going to want to write down, and I'm so excited for you to tune into this one. So I hope you enjoy. Also, before we tune into this episode about relationships, I want to say thank you. We have blown up on TikTok. One of the shorts that I put up on Instagram and YouTube and all these different things with Gem Fuller, actually a few of them have just been going nuts from previous episodes. So I want to say thank you, whether you're following me or not. If you're not, go follow me. Everything is Carlo_Cirillo, The Conscious Podcast. Go check it out, go follow, but also go share those little snippets. That's the thing that gets eyes on this. And what's absolutely crazy is one of these videos at the time of recording this has over 220,000 views. That is wild. And it's a really beautiful message from Gem. And I think about that, and like, who cares about numbers at the end of the day? But 220,000 people have received that message from the podcast. It's a beautiful message about you being exactly where you're supposed to be and finding peace in that. 220,000 people. And you're another one listening right now. So I want to say thank you so much for your support, for tuning in, and for sharing if you do, and would mean the world if you would make sure that you're following, hit subscribe. It helps me do more of what I love doing and share these incredible conversations with you and more people around the world. So thank you and enjoy this episode. Simi!
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
Amazing. Even better than I'm here.
Yeah. Well, great to have you here. And as we've been chatting a bit before we've started, and this is a brand new setup for those watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, go to YouTube, subscribe, like, all that fun stuff. Because if you get me closer to a certain amount of subscribers, then I can do some cool stuff. But it's also fun to sit and watch.
Exactly. And Carla made me brush my hair this morning, so you can go and see my freshly brushed hair on YouTube.
It actually was a conversation where you were like, I'm going to brush my hair for this. And I was like, well, I feel special.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. I'm out of my tracksuit.
Yeah. Look, I live in a hoodie and trackies. I'm lucky I'm not wearing my slides right now.
Next time, can we?
Bottom. Well, you only top up, so sure.
I've done that many counselling sessions. No, I haven't. This is a lie. In like my pajama pants and then a nice top.
On Zoom?
Yeah.
I've actually watched, I think it was Kevin O'Leary was doing like a Today Show interview, and like one of the Shark Tank guys, and he was literally like, there's a camera there filming, top half was suit, bottom half was like boxers and socks.
I love it.
But why not? Like, I don't mind. Like, this is where I think I've done one not topless. No, I think one of my guests was topless. Guy. Yeah, I think it was in Bali. Anyway, yeah, we can wear slides and not pajamas, but, comfy clothes. You look good though. Like, thanks for dressing up.
Thank you.
I feel underdressed. But
You don't look underdressed at all. You're a vibe.
This is me. Thank you. I'll wear a button-up shirt next time. But I'm so intrigued because this is the second time we've met, apparently. You came to my live show.
I did.
Which is really cool. Feels like a lifetime ago.
It was a very good live show.
Thank you. I really want to get back into those.
You should. It was actually such a vibe, and to meet different people.
Well, you throw another idea in my head. So, you should be on the live show, and we can. You know what, a relationships one? Not to give away what we're going to talk about today, but a relationships one would be cool because I think that's like so relevant in so many different ways.
I actually would love to do that and take heaps of questions from the audience because people always want like really quick answers from me, and I think that'd be fun.
Let's do it.
This podcast is us coming up with a business plan.
Done. You don't know who Simi is, but you just know that we're doing business together. Collaborating. So, I don't know much about you. Only a little bit what we've talked about, but there's so much context to someone's life, right? I produce the Be Human podcast, so I've heard a bit about you and stuff, and I really don't want to repeat those things, but I'm also like different audience and all that sort of stuff. But right now, you to get this right, you're a holistic relationship counsellor.
Thank you.
Amazing. Why did you get into this space? And what is this space?
Well, first of all, a holistic relationship counsellor, it's working more with individuals to see whether their subconscious programmings and behaviours are really holding them back in their relationships and helping them move through that. So rather than traditional couples counselling where it's working with the two of them, it's really helping people, whether they're single, whether they're engaged, about to get married, whether they're going through a breakup, whatever stage they're at, it's helping them kind of unpack all of that and find the bigger meaning in the little life lessons that life throws at us. What made me get into this space? That's the biggest question. Well, for me, I think anyone who's really in this space, you're in it because you've got a story. And for me, my story kind of goes back to childhood. I wasn't modeled healthy relationships. So then growing up on that, I really fell into subconscious patterns that kept me stuck, and I kept dating the same person in different clothing, and it was really, really challenging. And then it wasn't until I had one of those big life breakthrough moments where my mental health was just absolutely on the floor, I ultimately ended up deciding, like, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it now. And I spent the next 6 months just researching and doing all the things I needed to do for me. And eventually it got to a point where people who I used to lean on started leaning on me and being like, hey, in my relationship, this and that, and ultimately pushed me towards it. So that's how we're here.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in a relationship right now?
No.
So this is something I always used to get, like Matthew Hussey sort of stuff, and they always used to question you and be like, you're a relationship person, but you're not in a relationship. Relationship doesn't just mean with someone else. True?
Correct.
What has been like the biggest eye-opener studying this and then going into the whole counselling side of it about relationships?
Wait, can you ask that again, sir?
What has been the biggest...
No.
Do this. You got one long hair.
Do I?
Yeah. I'll help you out.
Thank you. Is it
gone? Got it. Just in case you did it. What has been the biggest eye-opener studying this, working with people amongst relationships?
This space is very challenging, and I think for the reason that we've kind of evolved as much as we can from a biological viewpoint, that now we're all really evolving from a level of consciousness and awareness. And, you know, the Australian Psychology Foundation was established in 1967. That's how long we've been looking into the mind itself. And now we've got all these people who are going through these incredible self-healing journeys and then trying to take that and morph that into their relationships. So I think the biggest thing for me is noticing how much this space is constantly changing, how much we're evolving, how much our relationships are evolving, how much we're no longer in these relationships that are just completely survival based and we can't get a divorce and that's it and that's us done, to now having choice and fluidity and wanting to pick and choose and really starting to unpack all of that. And I feel like it's really the first time that we're doing that. So it's super interesting and exciting.
It's such a big topic. It's so much context to all of it. I said that in a really weird way. Context to all of it. And I want to know or for those that don't know much about you, can you give us a wrap-up of Simi from where you started to how you got into this? And I'm sure there's lots of different things along the way to where you are now.
From kind of my professional journey or me as a human being?
Both.
Okay. How long have you got, Carlo?
We've got this room for another hour.
Perfect. So from my journey, really, so I started Jar Academy probably 2022.
What's Jar Academy?
Oh, that would be a good start, wouldn't it? So I found Jar Academy, and it's basically an online platform where I help people with their relationships, posting content. You can book in one-on-one sessions with me. I have a couples board game that's available. But ultimately, it's really about just putting out different tools and self-questions and relationship questions that help people reflect on their relationships. So I established that back in 2001. And from there, I've been so lucky to go on and do so many different podcasts. I did find that after a while of being in that space, that from seeing clients, I was kind of getting to a point where I was stuck and not able to help them through a certain point, because I'd be like, go do somatics, go do spinal energetics, go do breath work. So now I've kind of pivoted even more and went and became a spinal energetics practitioner, have fallen into the world of breath as everyone does, and have really now deep dived even further of how far back can we take this to our root causation of these self-limiting beliefs we might have about love, about relationships, about ourselves, and work through that. So yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Why Jar? Where's the name?
Just About Healing. It's an abbreviation.
Just About Healing.
That's a big thing that I noticed when I came into the space, that there's a lot of people that would say from their perspective or their story, and I didn't want it to be about that. I wanted it to be so judgment free. So even in my content, I'll always write like, when we do this, when we do that. And I think that really stems from what I learned in my course, where they asked us the question, who counsels the abuser? Someone has to. Someone has to work with that person. We might not morally think it's right. We might want to judge them, but we can't. If they're wanting to change and they're wanting to grow, that person deserves every right as much as the person who was abused. So yes.
That's a very interesting topic. I have some friends doing some work with people that are coming out of, being not the victim, the other one.
The perpetrator, the abuser.
Yeah. The person's, they've been, whether locked up or whatever, and they're trying to come back into life, and the system isn't really set up for success for them. And most people would go, well, they're bad people. They go in this box. Why would we help them? But like you said, I think it's important, because if you don't help them as well as a guidance to back to a better place for themselves, then if we don't do that, then it's just going to keep happening and circling around. And I'm going to share a story, and for anyone listening, just a warning. I won't go into detail, but I had someone close to me that went on a date, was drugged and abused physically and sexually, and this only happened 2 weeks ago. These things are happening, and I'm just when she called me, I was just like, what? Like, I can't believe it. Like, is this real? Like, that these things happen. And maybe it's just because I haven't been around it or heard about it much. Or you hear about it, but like, to have someone close to you that happened, it's just, going back to the context of it is why those people need support as well, because there's obviously something wrong in the loop.
Absolutely. And I think it goes from, that extent to even relationships where people, they're reactive, they're crazy, they're this, they're
narcissist,
that,
yep.
But why? And I'm not saying that that's their partner's fault, but for that person, somewhere along the lines, they either learned that was okay to do from models, parents, adults, or they've been so hurt and traumatized themselves that they've resorted to this way of behavior as a coping strategy and a defense mechanism. So Jar's just all of it. Like, I'm happy. There's no judgment. I'm just happy you're here to get help.
Yeah. Beautiful. What do you think is the not the most common, because there's probably so many different things, but yeah, what are the most common things that people come to you with, wanting help with?
I think at the moment, the biggest thing that I'm kind of getting is a lot of people in their late 20s, early 30s, even mid to late 30s, who are really kind of stuck. You know, they've kind of grown up with this belief or this story that they're going to find a person and they're going to, you know, date and travel the world together, and they're going to get married and they're going to have a baby, and then they're going to live happily ever after. And then all of a sudden they've gotten to this point or this stage, and it's just not either happened for them, or there's been some kind of roadblock in the story, and they're just not sure of like what's happening. And it's really quite sad, because a lot of people are losing, I want to say, like hope or faith in love because of that. So helping people navigate this whole new territory of online dating, of all these situations, is probably the biggest thing I've got at the moment.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess, why do you think that is? Why do you think it's because of social media? Do you think it's just society's changed? There's a new generation of dating and relationships that's been shown and modeled. Why do you think that is?
It's really difficult to say, but I definitely think that, you know, one, social media has a huge impact on that, and two, dating apps. Like, everyone who's listened to a podcast of mine knows I hate a dating app, but
You hate a dating app?
I hate dating apps so much. But you know, we have this belief that, like, you know, if I meet this person and then I'm like, oh, they're 70 out of 100% of what I want, but on my phone there's like 2,000 people right near me, and if I just swipe enough, I'm going to find them. And then that entire device is just set up to dopamine hit you. You start talking to them, and then your brain wants the dopamine, so it goes, oh, actually, maybe I'll go and see if I can, and you go back to swiping. And then on top of that, you've got people in there who have no intention of meeting up. They just don't want to actually sit in the fact that they're alone. So they'll go on it, have a couple of chats, and then get off and go on to the next person. So it's really set us up to fail in a way where we don't value what's in front of us as much anymore. We have this whole belief system that, you know, there's all these people around. There's these Instagram models who look the way they do. And, you know, some of them, of course, they look fantastic. But there's also a lot of them that are edited. There's so much, fakeness out there, if you will.
Yeah.
This hair and I are not friends. I'm not talking to you anymore.
I think it's interesting because before I was in a long-term relationship, I was on all the apps. And there's many stories of, like, you know, meeting someone in a different country that didn't speak the same language, and, you know, while I was traveling and all of that. And I've made a lot of friends from these apps, and it's interesting to hear stories now from people. And I've been on some of my friends' apps and just seen, you know, what the landscape of everything is, and it's just really interesting. And I think that, you know, I'm someone that values human connection. So, you know, whether I want to meet someone like you and me, for example, if there wasn't the podcast, I would have been like, let's go for a coffee. Let's catch up.
Why didn't you ask me for a coffee, Carlo?
Well, it was like 2 in 1. We could, All right. Well, I was going to say before we started, let's go for a walk. And then I seen you were so dressed up, and I went, I didn't even ask you if you wanted a coffee, but sparkling water. There's next time. I said bring your bathers this time. Next time we'll go sauna. Yeah.
So I just like making podcast host sweat.
It's fine. I can admit that I didn't ask for a coffee. But I think, like, I value human connection. This is why I think for me it was, you know, I loved hosting events where I get to meet people. And it wasn't in a dating sense of things, but I think that human connection was so important that if I were to ever go back on apps, it's very, I don't know, like, it'd be interesting to get into. Do you think that that's given people a mindset of, yes, there's more people out there, but it's kind of reduced their willingness to want to stick at something for a while, see more about it, where it's just like, oh, there's one red flag, go to the next person?
Yes. And the other major thing that it's really done is it's really, like, hurt a lot of people. Even, you know, people finally feel good and they're like, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to date, and they get on this app, and then people have no regard. And I can say that because I've been on the apps and I've caught myself in the same behavior where I've been like, oh, well, yeah. But it's like that person might have been really interested in me, and then I've just kind of ghosted them, and now they're hurt. And instead of kind of sitting in that hurt, they go straight back to swiping. And that builds up and it builds up and it builds up, and it starts to create a story in our heads. The dating pool's fucked. Sorry, can I swear in here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can now.
The dating pool's fucked. All men are assholes, like all these different... the dating pool's fucked. All men are assholes, like all these stories, so that when they do meet someone, they're already in that laser focused stress response of going like, you're going to hurt me. So I'm not saying that don't go on a dating app, but we have to bring conscious awareness to this. If you're going to do it, really monitor your own behavior. Most importantly, like, am I treating people how I want to be treated? Yes, we're going back to primary school. You know what I mean? But am I starting to get burnt out from this? Do I need to take a break? All of these things are so important just for your own mental health and to keep yourself thinking positively and dating positively.
Yeah. I think, like, do you think it's also we're going to shift our perspectives, because maybe we've been on the apps and unsuccessfully experiences that have happened, and maybe you've talked to someone and they've ghosted, whatever. Do you think it's also like a matter of, because I see benefit in these things where you can meet people. I have met people that I wouldn't have met anywhere else. Is it a perspective shift, or is it like a just knowing that this app is this app and this is what you're going to get? There's probably other ways you can do it as well.
I think it's like a combination of the two. Like, there's so many really cool dating events coming out, particularly for us here in Melbourne. There's one Thursday dating. There's like all these like now conscious connective activities that you can do where you can meet these people. And I'm not saying just go to those and don't use the app, but sometimes it's better to do both and see what's actually bringing you joy and benefit and what's actually hindering you.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say is, so this was some of the questions that I got asked. What are some big red flags that you think that people should be really aware of when it comes to relationships?
This is a tricky one because we naturally have our own list of red flags. And I think when people ask this, they want a definitive like yes or no. I think the best thing that people can really do is sit with themselves and their own past. So I'm going to be very vulnerable on here. For me, for example, I know that growing up, my emotions weren't validated. So if I meet someone and they're unable to validate my emotions or feelings, or they're very emotionally closed off, that's a really big red flag for me, because it's going to really set me off and repeat a cycle that I don't want to be a part of. I also know that my needs weren't met. So I need someone who's able to understand other people's perspective and try and meet their needs. On the other side of that, I also then need to be aware myself of, am I asking that person to do all of the work and just fix that for me? Or am I able to do 80% of it and then get that 20? Does that make sense? So that's going to look different for everybody, because there's people online who want masculine and feminine relationships. There's people that want 50-50. That's all going to come down to you and your own value system and what you want. But yeah, really figure out what your own wounds are and then look at what the opposite of that is. And that's going to tell you what's going to be quite pattern repeating for you.
Because relationships are going to, trigger things in you and stuff. And I've found myself in this where it's like, if they change, then, it'll get better. Or if they work on this. And I think being, at the, maturity, you'd call it, I'm at now is like, I have to work on mine as well. Like, I'm not going to sit, definitely used to sit and be like, I'm doing personal development. You need to do this, that. I'm the first one to put my hand up and say I'm not perfect. And there's things I've done in my life that I'm not proud of and would love to do differently in the future, and ways that I want to show up. Like even the whole talk around communication. Like if I don't tell you I like sparkling water and you give me normal water, and then I go, well, you gave me normal water, like you're a bitch. Like you don't know me. You don't know me. You don't listen. Yeah. If I didn't tell you that, different thing. If we go for coffee and I get it, or we go to somewhere and it's, I don't know, you're vegan and we go to a meat place. Like it's like if you don't communicate that, then the other person's not going to know. And this is just like, I think communication is something that it's what's coming up in my membership, where it's going to be a whole topic around how can we communicate better. And I think, like you just said, I love that you said that we've got to know ourselves, because if you don't know who you are, you can't communicate what you need, what you want. Does that then go down love languages, gene keys, all those types of things?
Yes, I'm big on like love languages, but I feel like when you really tailor it that way to yourself and go, okay, these are my 2 core wounds. So I know like my love language is to be seen, and not even like to be completely, oh my God, Carla, you magically understand me. But are you trying to understand me? Or are you going, oh, this is who I am, you know, take it or leave it? Are you trying? Because that I love, you know what I mean? So this kind of really helps get really specific. Obviously, I love quality time and we love physical touch. Most people love all of those things and in a different like way. But if you can really figure yourself out, you can really figure out how you need or want to be loved, and then communicate that to someone, then you're on a winning trajectory.
Yeah. There's also the other side of that, where it's like you express what you want and need.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got another person expressing what they want and need. Where's the give take?
That's the thing. So that's kind of like where I was saying like, okay, I need my emotions validated, but that doesn't mean you validate my emotions all the time. I have to do most of that work. That's why I have to watch myself, because if I just go, Carlos, validate me, come on, validate me. Where do I grow? Where do I learn? So there's also like me working and giving to myself. And then when I see that you kind of give that extra 20% that I might have needed, then it's like, okay, like, here, come, give, like, what do you need? You know what I mean? So you're able to kind of have this dance, but it can't be, these are my core wounds, fix it for me, because that's not going to happen.
And this is interesting, because I'm very cautious of what I listen to online, as everyone should be. I don't think, from my perspective, like, things just sometimes aren't black and white, and every relationship, everything has so much context to it that it's always going to be different. And for me, I think that one there is really interesting, because there is a lot of attitude towards, well, if you don't meet my needs, I'm out. And it's like, well, really, if you're meeting someone in a relationship, where do I want to come at this from? You're meeting someone in a relationship. So my personal view is that I need to also fulfill my own needs, and not have the full expectation that you're going to meet those needs. So I can fill my cup, and I also want you to fill my cup too. Like, you're in a relationship, you don't want someone that's just going to not meet your needs. I don't know what that is. So a very unfulfilling relationship.
And a relationship with 2 avoidance.
Yeah. So when you sit with individuals, do you focus a lot on, well, you need to meet your needs too, and not place it all on them? Because then also I think there's that pattern of, or that example where if you ask it from everyone else, you're constantly just going to be disappointed.
Correct. And that's like, I think where people get a little bit hung up when I explain that to them, of like, these are your core wounds, and like, so you need to know what's red flags for you. And it's like, you also need to know what's red flags for yourself in your own relationship, because if I go down that route where I'm dating that person who I know doesn't have the capacity to validate someone else's emotional experience, then I know that I'm going to be in it, and I'm going to fight for it, and I'm going to end up abandoning myself. So yeah, it's really like such a dance, and it's interesting because we kind of have this perspective as well of like, well, I'm meeting your needs and you need to meet my needs, and it kind of becomes this hostile thing. But it shouldn't be like, okay, you jump, then I jump. It's we jump. You know, mature love is beyond the honeymoon stage. It's a choice. We don't want to. Trust me, there's plenty of times where I've been like, no, I don't want to. You're an ass. I don't want to do that today, and I don't want to turn up for you today, but I'm going to, and I'm going to do it with a freaking smile on my face because I love you. You know what I mean? That's love, not the feel-good emotion of what we think love is.
So you talk a lot about core wounds. How does someone discover what their core wounds are if they're unconscious to the pattern that is their core wound that probably keeps showing up in all their dating relationships?
It's super, super interesting because that's kind of like the $1 million question. That's like the lifelong journey of your relationship journey, is actually really sitting down and go, okay, like how are these negative relationships that I had might be similar, and not just similar in terms of like, oh, they're avoidant, they're emotionally unavailable. Like what in you kept going there? What's like the theme? Were you constantly like self-sacrificing to hopefully win the person? Because usually it all traces back and you're repeating a pattern of confirmation from childhood
with your parents.
Yeah, so it's like I had to, let's say, perform for love. So every time I was perfect, then, you know, they were like, oh, great job, well done. Then I might then go into my relationships and be like, let me rub your feet and let me do the cooking and do the cleaning. And then you're not saying thank you and you're not clapping and you're not, so let me perform even harder. Let me more. And we end up abandoning ourselves. So yeah, it's a really tricky one, but if you want to do it, my biggest recommendation to you is sit down and write a list of all the relationships that you were like, that wasn't my best work. What's in common here? Let's have a look. And then have a look at where that might marry up with things in your childhood. And it doesn't necessarily have to 100% be childhood. A lot of times too, it can be like a major love we've had in our life and it went a certain way and it's kind of started to really wire things in our brains to kind of lean more one way or the other.
So that's how we discover those core wounds. And you're saying it doesn't always come from parents, but it could be that, you know, whether mother-father relationship.
Yeah, so it's interesting because if we look at, say, attachment styles, they're very fluid in our lives. So you can grow up and have a very secure relationship with your parents and, you know, be freshly 18 and you're very secure attachment style. And then you go and you're with this person for 5 years and they cheat on you and they abandon you and they pick the other person. You're now going to become quite attached, so anxiously attached moving forward. And that's always kind of like a pendulum. It's always kind of moving and dancing. So the core wounds, when I say that, it's really like the things that almost are like soul-suckingly gut-wrenching that we're really wanting to avoid. And we create a whole bunch of different behaviors in order to protect ourselves from feeling that again.
Like?
A big one is definitely like... One that I see like the most common in dating that people do is it's very like, oh, I'm going to end this before you do. I'm going to, I don't like his arm hair, bye. And it's really, you're protecting yourself.
My arm hair?
It was the first thing I saw. I don't know. You have great arm hair.
Simi, you're making me
sorry.
conscious here, like self-conscious.
I just said it because I just saw it. But you have beautiful arm hair.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But
words of affirmation is my love language. So.
Oh, is it? There you go. Well done. So yeah, it's really quite interesting because we're doing it all the time. You know, even in relationships, like if someone starts to be emotional and like we don't know, we can't go there, then we kind of shut down, we pull away. Yeah.
I'm so just conscious of my arm.
Oh,
man,
no,
like...
I heard it. Don't insult people on podcasts.
I think that because, all right, let's go a little deeper here. I've been in relationships that were longer than 3 months, right? 2. Now, do I see certain patterns that happened in the little relationships before then? Yes. Because when I think about that, it's like I don't think back to my childhood and go, there was anything that really... Like, is there parts of where I've seen my dad come out in me in certain things? Yeah. And beliefs and ways that, you know, a relationship was modeled to me, 100%. Very grateful that I'm also blessed of being very aware to be like, oh, I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
But even after being aware of those things, I'm still like, okay, now I've got a choice to choose how I want to be. So like becoming a father recently is like how I model this relationship, boy to like is my son. So like I know there's going to be that idolization, then demonization, and then humanization, where like we become friends. Hopefully that's very quick, that demonizing bit, but I didn't go through that with my dad where I was like, you don't understand me. It was just like, I moved away at 16, so I never got to kind of have that. We humanized quite quickly. But like, for example, I know that my actions towards him, towards his mother, towards other people is going to show him or create that attachment style or model relationships. It's almost like, what step do you take? Because it's like, what's good, what's bad? It's all relative to what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the rule book, Simi?
Well, this is the thing. There is no rule book. And that's where like relationships get really complicated because, you know, we can sit here and we can write it all out on paper and then you get in the moment and you are completely in your limbic brain. Everything's emotional and you're like, F what she said. I hate you. You know what I mean? Like you don't really know until you're in the moment. But if you're going through and you're going, okay, like these are the behaviors that I'm showing from my dad. Why? Like what's triggering that response out of you? And start to really like take it one step further back. Like because that's a learned coping strategy. So what's activating that?
Yeah.
And don't sit there and go through your entire lives, people, like trying to find these, but they'll come up in time. But just, you know, allow yourself to start to have the awareness and really step back in it. Here's an example of it, right? So in a past relationship, had someone who was very much, very masculine, wanted to, you know, like provide and do all these things. And at the time, I really resisted that. You know, and I could have easily just seen it on the surface as me being like, well, he's not letting me be that person. He's not letting me do these things. And then I realized, oh, shit, like I'm not allowing this because I've never felt safe to be in my feminine. So it's really like that one step further back of I'm not actually resisting him. I'm resisting myself. Yeah.
There's so much like context. There's so many things in relationships. And I think that, you know, you even being a holistic relationship counselor is just like, how do you even approach all your clients? Like it's because like what framework do you come from being a holistic relationship counselor? So you're not a relationship coach. Let's put it out there.
Thank you.
Holistic relationship counselor. Yeah.
So for me, I use like a Stutz model, which is really about like creating a relationship with your body. So if I get you to create that relationship with your nervous system and work with your body and feel into like what activates you and like what triggers you, then we can start to work on your relationships with other people. And then we can start to work on a relationship with yourself. So it's kind of like that pull back method that I keep talking about. But I don't force that. Like I won't say to you, well, Carlo, but that's because of this. If I get you in the right state of mind and I really start to get you to wind back and really shut your eyes and think about it, you know the answers. You know, it's our little logical brain that wants to protect us and keep us safe. But when you're in that safe container and you're away from the stories enough and you're actually dedicating time to sitting with it, it'll come through.
You said stories. If there's someone listening right now and they've got a story playing in their mind like, all men are assholes. All women are just out to get X, Y, Z. What can they start to do to rewrite that story?
The first thing, if let's say that's the specific story, they need to take a break. They need to work on their relationship with themselves because that story stems from some form of stored emotion. And that's usually like past hurt that hasn't been processed, or it's been more like a rapid fire, kind of what I was talking about with the dating apps, where it's like burnt. And now I've collected this idea and there's these walls up. Really take a break and rebuild that relationship with themselves. And then you actually need to reparent yourself. So you need to start to be really conscious of, I don't know, I met this guy, he's going to hurt me, what state of mind am I in? How am I behaving? And then you have to really be like, it's okay, Simi, like that's what was, and I don't know that 100%. I need to trust myself and I can walk away at any time and really almost take control of your thoughts in a way that's self-compassionate and you're not berating yourself about it, and try again from there. And I'm 100% you will get hurt again, but if you start showing up for yourself differently, then it actually doesn't necessarily hurt as much when people do walk away because you've got that safe, healthy relationship within yourself. And modeling that behavior to yourself is then going to help you long term find the healthy relationship.
So it's important to change that story. Otherwise, you're just going to keep living in the same result.
You've got a complete filter on. Your articulator activating system is literally scanning that person constantly for, are you going to hurt me? And then you're not seeing all the little emotional cues for bonding and all of this stuff because you're so fixated on like, oh, he took 2 hours to write back. Rather than, oh, he's at work.
What was that? Everything's still switched on? Yeah, beautiful. We're good.
I'm scared.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, and this is what I've seen with my clients through my program, is that I mostly have females coming through and women coming through the program, but they've just been so damaged and burnt in many scenarios, whether that's in relationships, in marriages, in dating. And like as a guy and my guy mates, I've heard the same thing from them as well. Like a lot of people have felt a lot and been hurt a lot because whether, actions have done something or something wasn't communicated properly or it was just ended like just ghosted type thing and, couldn't just send a message saying, hey, I'm just not feeling this or whatever it may be. A lot of people have been hurt a lot. And I think it's, as you were saying, I think like the nervous system comes into it, your own relationship with yourself comes into it. And I love that advice that you said before of like, just take a break.
This is the biggest thing. I'm going to share this. This is very vulnerable of me as well. I get a gold star after this, Carlo. But for example, like back in April, like I put my heart out there completely and it got like torn up into little tiny pieces, like the Simpsons when you can see Ralph's face, like the moment it broke. And only really kind of in like the last couple of weeks, I've actually gone, yes, I'm ready to get back out there. I think people underestimate how much time they should really give themselves to take a break between those situations, because otherwise if I'm coming in and I'm already hurt and I'm angry, I'm going to bleed onto the next person, right? And then I'm only going to reaffirm to myself, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit. So I'm not doing myself any favors because I'm already going in at a loss. So yeah, it's tricky. It's really tricky, particularly when we think we have to do it all by biological age, but that's all natural. But you're better off just taking, the 3-4 months of really processing that so that you're coming in with the best chance of meeting someone in a healthy state of mind.
Yeah, I think the advice that I never got, but I try to share, especially with, in my situations of my events and my clientele and everything. And not that I try and give advice anymore because, just kind of ask questions to let them find answers. Is when you work on yourself, like you're not going to come from a place of like we were saying before, like not that you're going to heal everything. Healing's, lifelong journey. But when you work on those things and understand yourself, then when you, like you said, you start to go into relationships, you've got a better perspective. You're not, there's this quote that I keep reposting. And give me a minute to find it.
Show me.
I know exactly who posted it.
How many times have we looked at this, Carlo?
A lot. Men need to sit with men who have healed perspectives of women. Women need to surround themselves with women who have healed perspectives of men. The conversations are different. The energy is different. The love, appreciation, and respect is different. And I think that if we have one or a few experiences where it's like, ends in the same way, or the man hurts the woman, or whatever, the other person hurts you, and you don't come from a healed perspective, it, like you said, it's just going to bleed onto every single one. You're going to be like, men are fucked. They're all like this. And it's like, that's not true. There is, and then you go to the next person who could be a really nice person and you're just like, one red flag, see you later. Like, you're fucked in this. And then that affects that person. And that wounds that person. And then boom, cycle. But also the other way around. Like, you know, I've been in circles where it's, you know, women are all like this and they all want that. And I'm like, what is this blanket statement? Like, every individual is different. Like, you're going to meet someone that might want to settle down and have children. You might meet someone that doesn't want to have children. You might meet someone that wants to travel. You might meet someone that's more feminine. You might meet someone that's not. Like, it is a lot to navigate.
It really is. And this is where it kind of gets like crazy. It's like I had a friend say to me, I remember we were talking about it, like what our ideal person would be. And she was like, I want someone that travels and I want someone that's free and I want someone who does all these things. And that was like in her mind, everything she wanted. And then she met this guy and he was divorced, 2 kids, and just fell in love with him and completely changed this entire narrative that she had been telling herself and all these other people she'd cut loose. But when she actually found someone that she really cared about, all that superficial stuff, and sometimes it's not superficial, like freedom might mean a lot to you, but it can change. And it's like this balance of constantly like hopeless romantic and consciously aware. And you kind of have to dance in there because we can come at love with so much consciousness, but it's so emotional.
Yeah. And contextual. Like you said, you might meet someone that's not in what you ever thought it would be, whether they have children or blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, this is what I want. You might be like, I don't want kids. And then you meet someone with kids and you're like, all right, I want this. Like, it just, yeah. I love that perspective where it's just like, you just got to be aware and also not put this pressure of like, it needs to be this way. Like, honestly, I thought my life was going to be a certain way. It's not been anything like that. If that was the case, I'd be a professional soccer player in Europe, right? That didn't happen. And I had to be like, okay, life can be different. It doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It's just, I guess the expectations that we have and expectations versus needs is a tricky one.
Yeah. It's all a balancing act. It's just, yeah. It's
Everyone just book in a session with Simi, all right? And we'll run a workshop, all right? We'll do a live show and we'll try and get to the bottom of these.
Yeah, you know, it is, and it's so tricky because even when I'm saying this and I'm answering it, like there's so much as well where like for someone that might resonate and for other people it might not because it is so contextual. It's just you have to just be aware and take things that you've learned in your own personal development journey and apply that to your relationships as much as possible to give yourself the healthiest outcome.
Yeah. It's trial and error.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are at the point where they're like, I don't want a trial and I just want it to be the one. How do I meet the one?
But this is the thing, right? You could, like, this is my question when people are kind of really pushing for that is if you could walk into the gym tomorrow and meet the love of your life. Like that. Done. Are you ready for that?
Ready in what terms?
Like, if that person who was genuinely like a healthy, happy, loving relationship, are you going to be able to be in that and not self-sabotage and not run away and healthily communicate and do all of these things? Like, I think people always see it as something so far away on the rainbow, but we never know when we're going to meet someone that's important to us. And when we do, it happens before we even, think about it. So it's like, rather than worrying about like, when am I going to meet this person? Are you emotionally, mentally ready that you're going to turn up in a way that best represents yourself?
Is it one of those, the quote that keeps coming to my head, or the saying is like the right person, wrong time, wrong person, right time? No. Right person, wrong time.
Yes.
And wrong time is like you've just gotten out of something, or you're not, in that whole was the word? In that grounded place where you're like, okay, I'm gonna go for this.
And Matthew Hussey says it really well. He says it's never like right person, wrong time, because it will always be like God, this gets so confusing. For it to be the right person, it has to be the right time. Does that make sense? So that's kind of like, you got to flip that on yourself and be like, am I going to be able to be there? Because there's people in my past who I've met who were absolutely amazing, and I was the one that shot it in the foot because I wasn't ready. I hadn't done enough with myself to actually welcome that in. Instead, I was fixated on jandals and socks, you know? I didn't want to go with the arm hair again. I was
Love
scared
it.
I was going to upset you.
And I'm wearing sneakers. I'm not wearing jandals. Not in this episode. So, is there a thing, or is there merit to finding the one?
I think that
do we ever find the one?
I think we find the one so many times in our life, like again and again and again, because you meet someone and you're at like this level of consciousness and they're at that level of consciousness, and then you either might grow together at the same similar rate, and that's generally what makes mature healthy love last a long time, because you're both growing on the same trajectory, or you don't and you fall away and you go down this whole other rabbit hole and you meet someone else. But the alternative to that is what we've had, which was these divorces where we couldn't get out of, and people spent their whole lives unhappy. So it's kind of this weird price to pay, you know what I mean? Where it's like you may get lucky and meet that person, be with them for 50 years, or you may meet 5 soulmates. It's all a journey.
One that's just interesting to navigate.
One that we all hate, but then at the same time love when we're in it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and this is like, it's changed my, perspective on things, because I've been in and out of relationships and dating, and growing up, my sister, got married at 19 and had children at 20, and that's all I'd kind of been around, and I was like, I thought I wanted that. I almost got engaged at 19 in a relationship that I was in. Didn't, went overseas, played soccer, and I'm very grateful for that. But not that was right or wrong. Like, whatever I chose in that decision was, the next step for me. But it's interesting looking at it and going, well, should you have stayed? Should you have left? And it's like, when does someone end? When should someone end a relationship? Or when's that like knowing that this isn't serving me anymore?
I think people know. I think a lot of the times we like to lie to ourselves. And usually when people ask me that question and I ask them what they think, they already kind of have the answer. But I think if you're in a relationship and it's at a point where, let's say, I'm fighting to kind of get the relationship, like one person's already checked out and I'm fighting for the relationship you've really got to ask yourself, like, is this what I want to be in? Is this where I want to be? Is this what healthy love is, where I'm having to drag this thing through the mud? Yeah, I hate that question because it's so hard, like, but we know and people don't like to hear it.
How does someone, whether they're in a relationship or they're dating, how do they express what they want or need?
Very directly. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of get it a bit confused, because they kind of make it this subconscious game in a way of like, oh, I needed that and they did this, you know what I mean? And when you're communicating, it's really, really game changing if you're actually saying, like, Carla, before that really upset me, next time I think I might need this. And adding that in actually helps really diffuse a lot of situations, because it's saying next time. So I'm already telling you, like, this isn't over, this isn't a threat, I'm not, got to hold this against you forever, but I'm saying how I felt and what I need in one sentence. And it's very scary to do the first few times. And it's just as hard as it is to start expressing how you even feel. But I promise you, after you do that a few times and you're doing it to the right person who wants to be there and turn up and do the things, it really helps. I always say that it's kind of like you have this amazing honeymoon period and like you're so in love and you're all in it, and then it's almost like really a lifelong journey of learning who that other person is, because we don't know who we are. We do today, maybe, but tomorrow I might take up skateboarding. Tomorrow I might become a ocean fisherman. I don't know, but I'm going to learn that about myself. So you're constantly having to learn as things change, and different situations will require different things. Maybe in this situation I need closeness, but maybe in that one I need distance. You know, it's I think it's hard because needs aren't a scoreboard where we've got to check, are they meeting them, are they not meeting them, as long as there's effort. That's really what we're looking for.
And consistent effort to try to meet those. I think it's like there's also that we can express, and then if it's not met, it's like, well, I told you. And it's like, well, you know, there's got to be some progress, I guess, but also time. I think a lot of people are in a rush to like, needs to be this. Again, you see that red flag and it's like out. And the communications. How can someone end something in the most nice way?
I want to tell a story with this. So this is actually a friend of mine, and she came to me because she was saying that she was really burnt out from dating. Was in the can't do this anymore, I'm gonna die alone stage. And I said to her, like when you're dating people and it's not working out, how are you responding to them? Because I noticed that she was dating people and then they weren't her person, and she was almost getting angry at them. So I could see that she was almost like, oh, and you know, he spends the whole weekend watching sports, and like was angry at this person for being this person. And it's like, that's who he is. Like, that's that person. And she's like, oh, well, I usually just stop communicating. And I said, next time, I want you to try something different. I want you to send them a text message, and I want you to say to them, like, hey, I've loved getting to know you. This has been great. I don't really see this going anywhere in the future. If you need any context or clarity, let me know and I'm happy to provide it. And she sent it, and then she rang me and she goes, he wants context. What do I do? And I said, you call him and you give him context that you just have different hobby. And she did. And she rang me back and she's like, oh my God, that was so nice. He's actually the sweetest person ever. Like, I'm really happy for him because, you know, he said like this kind of keeps happening and he couldn't figure out why. And it was so nice to hear. And she's like, oh, you know, that was so nice. And I'm like, look at the difference between, oh my God, he watches sports, to he's a great person, but it just wasn't my person.
And look at the difference on the endings where it's just like ghosting, not giving any context, and the person being like, what the hell? And then you actually saying, well, if you do get that chance to give that context, then they go, okay, like that's almost like the closure of something ending in a respectful way. Like, and then the person can go, okay, like sad. Well, hopefully they can do this. It's sad, but I'm not going to fight it. Like, thanks for letting me know.
And he was actually very grateful because he got something to realize that his behavior of just sitting in front of the TV all weekend was actually like a bit of a turn-off for some people. So it's like he actually learnt something from the experience. So yes, he got hurt and the relationship didn't want to continue, but he actually was able to sit and go, oh, maybe I want to not do that. And what hobbies do I like? And there's now an opportunity for him to go and find what he might refine in liking, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So that was how we express ending something. How do we express, yeah?
I will also just add in on to that, because if you go and try this, she did come back to me about like 3 months later and she was like, oh my God, this person really didn't take it well. Like they lost it. And that does happen, but she had done it enough in that time to know that that was just that person in that moment. You know what I mean? So if you're like, oh, but that person's not going to respond that way, it does happen. But if you do that consistently enough, you can just see that that's where that person's at.
And we can't control their reaction to whatever.
Correct.
Because that might be them feeling hurt that they got rejected, or
I just didn't want to say it and then someone try and the first one to get yelled at.
Yeah. So that's how we express ending something. How can we express wanting to start something? Maybe we've dated and then you want to commit.
I'm a hopeless romantic. I might just, will you be my girlfriend?
Boombox.
Literally. I want like Ryan Gosling like building me a house. No.
Good luck.
And that's why she's single, folks. No. I think that it's always really good, like if you've been dating and then like you want to make it like exclusive, is just really having that conversation of like, this is where I'm at. This is where I would like it to progress. I just want to check in with you and see if you're on the same page. And people hate that conversation because it really...
What if they say no?
What if they say no? The opposite of that is what a lot of people have, where they're too afraid to say something. So they stay in this situationship and it becomes this 2-year, 3-year, 4-year thing without any form of commitment or ever progression to anywhere, where the other person never actually had any intention of wanting to be long term. It was just convenient.
Yep.
And I know it sucks and we've all been there, but you're better off once you know, okay, I do want to commit to this person, having that conversation. Yeah. And making sure that you're there to pick up your own pieces.
So before we spoke about like red flags, what are some green flags?
It's interesting because there's so many different things in relationships that we kind of go on about, like where it's like things should be this way and they should be able to communicate all the time and they should be able to, you know, be emotionally available, and they should. And I always like to think that it's like, is there effort? Like, is there actual consistent effort of them trying? Because we're not always going to get it right. That's 100% for sure. There's going to be times where we miss things. There's going to be times where we're in our own stress response and I don't have time for this today. But out of 100, how many times am I trying to strike the ball? And that really can apply to then anything. So if you're dating someone, you know, and they're just wanting to come over to your house and sleep with you, and they're not trying, well, then there's no effort. You know what I mean? So you've really got to see, is this person trying to take it in a place consistently with what we're doing, our emotional needs? Are they trying to understand me? Are they trying to understand the relationship? That's what we've got to look for.
There's two more things, but one of the big last questions that I ask everyone is, if you had one more social media post that you could put out there, and this is the one that stays up for the rest of time.
Where am I going?
Your message, I don't know, but like social media stops. But one last message that you could share with someone, and it could be about life, it could be about relationships, whatever. What would that message be? This is like your future children, next generations.
I think that the biggest thing always is to, I don't know how to word it in a fancy post way, but I'm just going to explain it. Like, do what you need to do to go back in with an open heart. Like, keep going in with an open heart. And yes, you're going to get hurt, but then go have the 3-4 months off to pick up the pieces. And because you know the alternative, you're in it. For a lot of people, other people are in happy relationships, but you know, a lot of people are out there and they're so guarded and they're so closed off and they're struggling to meet anyone, and you've got that reality. So try something different.
And can everyone find love?
Yes. You just gotta find love within yourself first. And when I say love yourself, I don't mean like, oh my God, I'm amazing. I mean like, how do you turn up on your bad days? Are you compassionate to yourself? Are you kind to yourself? Do you allow yourself to feel shit for a while? Because that's what's going to be the most paramount thing when you meet someone, because you've then got to help juggle their emotions. You've got to turn up when they're having a shit day. You didn't even want to turn up when you were having a shit day.
It's like 100 questions that just came into my head, but that's all right. That's for part 2. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, and it's very inspiring for anyone that's listening. Tell me about this.
Oh yeah, I got you a present. I made a board game, everybody.
You have to explain it, because if people are listening, then they can't see what you're holding up.
I have in my hands a board game that I made. I know that we spent a lot of time really going over probably one of the biggest things that I have, which is like the more towards people that are single and looking for love. But this is a board game for couples, and it is super cute and super cool. And you basically roll the dice and go around the board depending on what color you land on. It depends on what color card you pick up. So there's like fun ones, there's intimacy, there's connection, there's sex. I did put that intentionally at the end so that the men play all the way to the end. And then the winner picks the first or the next date night. And then-
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If we had time, we'd like do one just to see what it does. But so the board game's called Let's Connect for couples. Where can they get this?
Oh, you can get this at jaracademy.com.au.
This is really cool. Like, if you're not watching, go to YouTube and start watching. But it's a physical board game, like a Monopoly.
Yes, it's properly designed and everything, and I did it all from my own brain.
This
is
is
very
really
exciting.
cool. I'm super impressed. Like, when you showed me at the start, I was like, no way you made this. Like, you bought this on Amazon.
No, but also
not to downgrade you. It was just a matter of I've never seen anyone make a physical product like this.
But if you know me and you know my grammar and spelling, and then you buy the board game and there's some spelling mistakes, then you would believe it's mine. And there is some spelling mistakes, and I'm so sorry. I'll change them on the next round. But for now, there's a few there's and there's around the wrong way.
Yeah. I love that. I think this is really cool. And like, you know, there's other things, and maybe you've got them, like those connection cards I've seen going around, and, you know, all the little things that you can, whether you're in a relationship or you're dating, like, it allows you to get to know the other person better, but also yourself. And I think if we don't know what we don't know, and if you're in a relationship or dating or even single, I think everything comes back to know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't know that, you can't share it. If you don't know it, you can't even show up for yourself. So I love that there's people in this world like yourself that are willing to sit with other people and help them through this.
And just to add one thing on about this, the reason that I love even like the board game or the couple cards is because it gives people an opportunity to have the conversation out of a stress response.
It's playful.
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to be playful.
And like, but it's just such a game changer. Like, if you're struggling to communicate when you're in the argument and you kind of actually find out the answers beforehand, then when you're in it, it's not as, you're like, oh yeah, they answered this.
There was one conversation I had with someone where they were talking about dating, and I was like, maybe people need to create like a CV that's, you know, these are the things to watch. I guess that's a dating profile. Like, these are my green flags, these are my red flags, these are my wounds, but that also takes out the fun of getting to, maybe do both.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe just go to these events, buy the board game.
But you know it's interesting as well, because like the biggest advice that I give to people dating at the moment is have fun. Because people are so quick, like you were saying, like just really wanting to meet the person, that you're sitting there with your checklist, I'm sitting there with my checklist, that we're actually not even having fun or seeing if we get along, you know? And more joy, people, more joy.
You know, one question I didn't ask, but it's probably the number one thing I should have asked, is why are relationships important?
For me, I think one, we're designed to have them. I mean, even from like a survival point of view, but for a lot of us, it can really add or really take from our lives if we're in unhealthy ones. But for me, the reason I love it is if we want to see a change, like in our kids in the future and all these things, it starts with us in our relationships. And they're secure attachment,
Then we wouldn't have duality in the world.
You can have duality on your movies, and I'm going to make the world a happy la la land.
And it takes people like you to do this stuff to then take that ripple effect and keep the change happening. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for sharing everything and being super vulnerable and doing your hair, brushing your hair.
You're welcome, everybody.
Really appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. I think there's so much in this for people to take away and start just becoming more conscious of themselves and their relationships, and whether they're dating or in a relationship or just doing their own thing. Like, there's always something we can do, not from a place of you need to always be doing something on yourself and inner work all the time. I think there's that pressure, but you know, the more you know yourself, the more you can fill that cup. And then when you start to have relationships, because I think they're the most, you know, some of the most fulfilling things that you can have in your life, but also memories and life. And when you know, choose to then procreate, then that's relationships. There's like all these things where, you know, quality of your life, quality of your relationships. And I love that. So thank you for all that you do and for sharing all that you did. If anything inspired you listening or watching, I would love, and I'm sure Simi would too, if you screenshot, put it on your story, tag us, or even just send us a message and say, hey, I relate to this. I resonate with this. Share it with your friends. I say this on every podcast. Every single person in the world would benefit from more awareness on relationships and this conversation. So share it. Just put it on your damn story. You know how much that would help me and Simi as well. And follow the Instagram because there'll be little shorts and stuff that you can share, all these like really poignant points with some great music to get your emotions popping. And if you want to connect with Simi, where can we find you?
At Jar Academy. Oh, I forgot my own Instagram handle.
I'll put everything in the show notes.
It's been a while. At jar.academy on Instagram. Come find me. Come hang out.
Your fun stuff. All right, well, I'll put it all in the show notes as well. So wherever you're watching or listening, go check it out. Is there anything cool coming up that we should know about?
Not really.
Oh, there's a live show with me and Simi
yeah.
about relationships that will eventually be... We better work this out by Monday because this is coming out Monday.
Can you...
To be confirmed.
Can you guys let us know if that's what you would like and we can come answer some live questions because I think that would be fun.
That would be.
Can you guys do it for us, please?
Let us know. DM one of us. Sounds good. But thank you so much.
Thank you. And I appreciate you and all that you do in sharing people's wisdom and your own. And it's amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Peace.
Bye.